critical thing we are here to do is the Likadi route rail system. We need to link Lagos to Kano by rail because 60% of our domestic trade pass through that route. And when we do that, it will improve domestic trade, it will help the farmers, and then they can have more value for their produce.
You're welcome to the Economy and Politics Conversation. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition will discuss agriculture as a pivot to Nigeria's inclusive economic growth. My guest joining me here in the studio for this discourse is Dr. Bola Agbola, an agribusiness expert and CEO of Lam Agro Consult. It's great to have you, Doctor, coming to our studio. Thank you very much. It's a brand new week and good to have a conversation on agri sector and how it can drive our economy. Interestingly, of course, the federal government has put it as a priority, agri sector. It's part of the priority sectors to drive its sustainable economic growth. And this is a good signal for the sector. I remember last time we had a conversation last year, you talked about the need for more funding, intentional funding, and you talked about the need for infrastructure. All those things require funding. So with the priority now in place, has this provided that signal? And what are those segments of the agricultural value chain that should be prioritized now that we're seeing agri sector in the limelight?
Thank you very much. I agree with you that the growth in the agri sector is also critical in the overall growth of the economy, which we believe should be about 4.49% by this in 2026, based on the IMF projection. And it was also a very good component of the growth we had last year in the economy, which was applauded globally. And in terms of the budget, well, it's been growing, but you know, Nigerian budget too has been rising. I mean, in 2004, we had about 364 billion naira allotted to agriculture. It's gone down it went to 860 something billion in 2025 and 1.3 trillion this budget. But if you look at it, its percentage, we are still running between 1 to 2% bracket when we all decided as Africans that for Africa to be self-sufficient in food production, we must spend up to 10% of our budget.
That's the Maputo Declaration.
That's the Maputo Declaration, reinforced by twice now. So, and we are not there yet. We are not there yet. Although we also find that in Nigerian setup, you know, it's difficult to. There are so many other areas that is feeding into agriculture. The water budget, which is critical.
Water resources.
The Water Resources Ministry, and then of course we have most of the. In the last budget, one of the funny things is that they routed the community projects of some of the legislators, senators, House of Rep, and added it to part of agri budget. And it's a fact that some of their projects could target agri, rural area, and all the rest. But we need to spend more, and we are still not spending enough for agricultural development. Be that as we may, the sector is growing and is a critical element in the recovery of the economy. The good news for Africa is at least there's an African country today that has recorded a growth beyond single digit. That's Ethiopia, which is very, very interesting, which shows, and it's a agri-based economy. The economy revolve, it's balanced economy, agriculture, they don't have oil. So which shows that it's, we should not be looking at a growth of 6%. We should be looking like 7%. And if we really want to actually minimize inequality and then, of course, help to have a kind of inclusion in the economy. So we still have a lot to do in spending for agriculture. We are still not spending enough, even though in terms of volume, it is going up. We also know that value too has declined. So if you deflate with the exchange rate, you know that there has been no significant increase. But the key thing is what the budget is spent on and the capital projects, what projects, because we are a vast country with 92 million hectares of land, 34 of which is arable. But unfortunately, we are not doing much on that. It's only 40%, about 40% of that is being cultivated. And the intensity is also not there because we are not doing all year farming. But these are the areas I think government spending should be, how to increase our capacity to irrigate our farmlands. We have a lot of, two of Africa's biggest rivers crisscrossing Nigeria with their tributaries that we can dam in so many places and use to do all year round farming. I think those are the challenges in our spending.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you've raised funding again and the need to invest in infrastructure, particularly irrigation.
Yeah.
I hope you can go back to those river basins because those are very important things, even in the military era, which we have to structure, and plus the dams to really scale agriculture. And one area, like you talked about Ethiopia, but they're doing well also in that area, is agricultural processing. Now, economists and analysts believe that the agricultural sector is going to be very important. The Nigeria Economic Summit Group, in their presentation, the 2026 Economic Outlook, said agri and manufacturing are critical if Nigeria is going to hit those double-digit growth. And so, how do we scale this at this time to become a productive sector? How do we scale this?
Well, I believe that the Special Processing Zone initiative by
the African
Development Bank, $540 million, is ongoing. And I think Nigeria is also, if there's anything we know, we do our counterpart funding. And these are actually to process agri-produce in our food basket, which is between the fringes of the rainforest and the savanna, the Sudan savanna. And that's why we have the pilot projects in rivers, cross rivers, Imo, Kwara, Oyo, Ogun, and Kaduna states. So that these are the areas that are in the middle of the park, tip of the rainforest, and then Guinea Savannah zone, Sudan Savannah, where most of the grains are produced. So the objective is to provide infrastructure for processing basic staple foods like cassava, like maize, and then of course, so that we can actually be able to stimulate the entire value chain. When you process, you create. It affects every segment of the value chain, from input to production, because you need the crops, you need inputs. So it ramifies the entire value chain, because once you are increasing processing capacity, adding value, then the benefits go up the stream, the upstream segment and downstream segment. So if we are able to process significantly, then of course we can stimulate production. You've seen this year, a lot of people, we had a lot of cassava and prices are just dropping. If there are processing facilities, definitely the farmers will benefit, and then they will have incentive to produce more the next cropping season. What will happen to farmers this year is that because of the crashing prices in some of these commodities, they will find other things to grow because they are the best economists.
Yes.
If they grow this year and and that's why the booms bust alternate in most of the agricultural produce. If they planted this year and then there is bumper harvest and then prices crash, they will look at, is it pepper next time? Is it tomato next time? Is it maize? Is it yam? Like yam, we are the greatest producer of yam in the world, and we've never had scarcity. We always have yam to eat all through the year. So that shows that we need to focus on some of the things that we are very good at and ensure that we do it properly.
Yeah, focus on the things that we're very good at and do it properly. And that brings us to, the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. They've talked about the need for us to have a farm price stabilization framework and a farmer income protection framework too. That's very important to unlock the sector. So when you look at this, equating it with sustainability and the fiscal activities of government to support the sector, what is your take on this whole, and what is the role of government and the commodities exchanges and all stakeholders in achieving this?
You see, it's a very interesting. Price support is a key element of agricultural production, and it could come in different ways. The year you notice there's a lot of bumper harvest, government should buy. You create a demand, there's a supply. So if there's no demand, prices will crash. So the essence of strategic grain reserve, the essence of storage for processing and all the rest, even the essence of increasing processing facilities is actually to ensure there is off-taker for the produce at a reasonable price. So because of the vastness of the country, the traditional price support is that there are commodity boards that monitor the price trend. And then when they notice that there is going to be surplus, they keep buying, they intensify their buying, and then that stabilizes the price. That's the only way to guarantee the income of the farmers. Not that, oh, I've done fish and then there is a glut, or there is egg, there is a glut. The thing is that at the period of that glut, there must be a last sort buyer. And the essence of having commodity boards, not exchange. Exchange is to facilitate trade and price discovery. We already have Lagos Futures and Commodity Exchange, FX, and then Nigerian Commodities Exchange, and doing that, trying to create a platform for people to buy forward. And then we are yet not to, because what goes into that actually includes storage, includes certification, includes standardization. And then so that prices, I buy paper and then I can decide to exercise that right and collect it at maturity day, futures trading and all the rest. But we are, because of the available facilities in Nigeria, the forward trades and then the futures trade is still at a rudimentary level. We need to do backup infrastructure, ensure there are appropriate storage facilities. If I buy maize, if it's there for 6 months, definitely it will be shrinking and all those things. And then how do you ensure that the paper I bought in Lagos in 6 months' time or in 9 months' time, when I want to exercise the option of taking delivery, it is there in the form that we agreed. So we still have issues with storage facilities, with transportation infrastructure. And then, of course, we see what is happening with our roads. One of the good things we are seeing is switching from asphalt-based road to concrete-based road. I apply Lagos-Ibadan Express, Ilesha Expressway, because that leads to my hometown. I cannot remember the number of times they've changed the asphalt surface. But now we are doing concrete that once they do it, I may never see it done again in my lifetime, because they say it lasts 50 to 100 years. So these are some of the infrastructure we need to put in place because you see a lot of trailers falling off because of bad road. Even if the roads are paved properly, all these policemen doing check-up and all the rest, they won't even be there because the speed will be so much. So we need to interconnect the country. Thank God we are having the East-West Road, the North Badagry-Sokoto Road, and all the rest. This may take some time, but they have a lot of information. A lot of prospect for movement of goods and services. And the critical thing we are here to do is the Likadi route rail system. We need to link Lagos to Kano by rail, because 60% of our domestic trade pass through that route. And when we do that, it will improve domestic trade, it will help the farmers, and then they can have more value for their produce.
Yes, I like the rural roads, because I remember I've applied that Ife to Ilesha Road, and the concrete road is really good. So just look at the agricultural activities there that I saw. I was really wowed. So that's an example of rural roads opening up and supporting the linkages,
Yes.
through the whole value chain. So let's look at 2026. We've seen that the government is taking agriculture as its priority, which is important. That's what it's supposed to do. 31.21% contribution to GDP and 3.71% in the last quarter GDP report from National Bureau of Statistics. What's the outlook for this year? Do you see bullish growth? What are the factors that will facilitate the growth? What must happen?
Well, honestly, the growth trajectory will be sustained. Yes, because of the government programs, and then, of course, because of inputs, fertilizer is readily available. And then, of course, there is also the campaign or use improved seeds. Those are critical areas that if we get it right, and then, you know, the major issue with agricultural output is also climate. I mean, change issue, insecurity. Every projection of sustainable growth has to index for those headwinds from issue of climate change. We are having rains now. Harmattan is not steady. But hopefully, we had a very good rain throughout last year. You know, it's critical for so many of our agricultural activities. So we are only hoping this year the rains will come as expected. We are also hoping that the upsurge in insurgencies will be curtailed. And once that is done, people are able to go back. A lot of bad things have happened. The agric labor that migrate around the country is no longer possible, because you see somebody dressed, you call him, so why he's not speaking your language, you call him herdsman or whatever. So those things have to stop. We need peace in the country. We need trust in the country, because the farm labor moves around the country. That has been called. That's why most people are having agribusiness, have labor issues. It's not only in US that is happening, it is happening here. In fact, most of the farmers now rely on farm labor from neighboring countries. People used to come from the Middle Belt, from the north, they no longer come. So, and these are some of the bad effects of this insecurity. So we've been in it for 17 years, and I want to believe that with the global attention on it, the pressure should be sustained, and then we should use a combination of kinetic and non-kinetic measure, engagement, embrace those who may want to, so that you can actually be able to, the farmers can have a field, they go back to their farm and produce, so that all of us can be prosperous.
Very important, prosperous. Very interesting conversation. We must continue spending. I mean, what we are spending currently is not even up to 5 or 10%, the Maputo. At least we can hit 5% first on the route to 10%.
In fact, if we do 4%,
4%,
the difference will be clear.
Yeah.
For instance, we need tractors.
Yeah.
We have one of the lowest tractor population.
Do we have up to 200 tractors in the country?
50,000. We don't have, it's between 45 and 50,000, the tractors in Nigeria.
Okay, 45 to 50,000.
Which is too small.
Too small.
Some local governments, they don't even have any. So, and this is one of the failures of our transition to a modern economy. When we were doing it, we were not mechanizing our farms. In most Southeast Asian nations and all the rest, when urbanization and industrialization came, then there were few people left on the farm, and they mechanized. That's what happened in US, that was happening in Indonesia and all the rest. But unfortunately, we lost that track. Everybody ran to Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and we left the farm, and with using hoe and cutlass, there's so little we can do. And capital is not going into agriculture. I tell people that, you know, capital, the environment is such that I could say, oh, I've done well in banking, in stockbroking, in oil and gas. Let me go and establish farm, do this and all, because it's a good business if it is well funded and well integrated. So those are the things we need to do. Imagine the money people are making on oil palm. The two companies, Okomo and Presco. Yeah. I mean, in all the recession, the prices were going because agri produce a recession don't really affect it. So imagine, and we have the land. We are still net importer of oil palm produce. We need about 2.4 million million liters of oil palm, and we are just producing 1.4. So we have a deficit of 1. So we are importing. Even though we do some export, we are importing. We are net importer. Not to talk of indirect importation, the biscuits we import, all the other products, confectionaries that has. So really, we need to create an environment where investment can go into agriculture. And thank God, the 2 headwinds where people make unusual money has been taken away. The subsidy and then the petrol price. Go into oil and gas in 4 or 5 years, become a billionaire. So those things are, so I think a lot of young people, a lot of people will put more money in agriculture now that those opportunity to make rent
those distortions
have been addressed.
Very important. So for everyone there, investors, agriculture, and then for government, provide incentives and guarantees.
Yes. And then the risk of government also capitulating. I see a lot of people complaining about the importation window that was opened last year. That it is food security and all the rest. And what my own argument is very simple. The government have a responsibility to moderate prices. If, for instance, we know the bread we eat, and I give you a simple analogy. A person will take about 25 kg of flour per day, per annum. So our demand for flour is about 6 million metric tons per annum. But our production is just about 60,000 metric tons. So we do just 1%. So we need to import wheat because we are not a temperate country. And God has balanced it by allowing us to produce the cocoa, the cashew, the ginger, we export. So if we need food security, so why should we say don't import some wheat to balance the economy? And you can only grow wheat in certain parts of the country during harmattan season, in lowland, wetland, under irrigation. So it costs much. So in terms of comparative advantage, we don't have it. But in maize, we are only actually produce half of our requirement. And maize is used everywhere, in food, by humans, by livestock, even in industry, starch and all the rest. So if we can focus and say, this maize, we are just producing half of what we need. What do we do to improve it? And so those are the critical things we need to do about our agriculture. Look at critical area where, or look at fish. We need about 3.6 million tons of fish per annum. But we barely produce 1-point-something million tons. So we import about 2.5 million tons of fish annually. And you can check it from the house. If you look at the quote you are using, the other rate. So these are areas where we need strategic intervention, just like what Egypt did at a particular time when government spent $2 million to create ponds in the Mediterranean. The Al Farouk pond is the biggest fish farm in Africa. So these are some of the strategic things government have to do and look at certain elements. Then dry season agriculture, what can we do? We can do maize, we can do so many things. So there's still a lot of room for audacious policy in our agriculture.
Thank you very much. At least, like you said, Ethiopia and Egypt are good examples. So be pragmatic and move from rhetorics to real implementation. So for the Gen Zs and millennials, how can they be involved in agriculture? How can it be valuable to them?
For the younger generation to get involved in farming, you need to start. I mean, I'm also a stockbroker. I deal with creating wealth and all the rest. So you need to save first and invest. And then for you can lease land. You can actually buy outright. And then if you have some other jobs you are doing, there are so many aspects of agriculture today. Greenhouse is very good. If you have capital, you can erect a greenhouse. Even monitoring farm projects, you can apply tech into it. Have your greenhouse, have cameras to watch everywhere. Because one of the greatest problems with agriculture is monitoring production. I mean, limiting pilfering and all those things. So for now, if you, as a Gen Z, you can have a farm, a greenhouse farm, producing tomato, vegetable, or whatever, and then you have your cameras around looking at it. Then if you want to look at investment for long, look at all these three crops, oil palm, cashew, cocoa. You can't get it wrong, especially if you are from areas where you can get land, either on lease or loan or outright purchase. You buy them, and then you can take your time to go in during your holiday, do the planting. You can monitor from remote, from doing your jobs either in Lagos, in Abuja, planting cashew nuts, planting oil palm, planting cocoa. Before you look at it, accumulating 1 acre today, 2 acre tomorrow, you build something that will be a life investment, because most of these tree crops, they are there for you to start yielding income once they start 30, 40 years. So it can even be a retirement plan. Because that's what I teach, that look, just do it as a retirement plan. Okay, by the time I'm I want to have 2 hectares of cocoa. And that means if you have 2 hectares of cocoa, you can imagine the dollar. Agree that the price had come down to about $4,000 thereabout. There was a time it was $12,000 per ton. So these are some of the things. But agriculture is profitable. You can also, if you have the entrepreneurial skill, you can acquire processing equipment to process to garri, starch, cassava. Then you can have outgrowers, because young people should do scalable businesses. If there's any advantage in agribusiness, it is the scalability. You can start small. I've seen stories of people who start poultry with 50 chicken and raising it, then multiplying it, because the demand for the product is there. So for the young people, it's also as good as investing in creative arts projects, like setting up a machine, a sewing machine company, producing for external. You can also have your own business. The only thing is that for agribusiness, get the right counsel on what to do, how to do it, and you have to learn. And then don't experiment with other people's money. Use your money to experiment, because the first 1 to 3 years, there will be challenges. And you need to have the capacity to wither it through.
Thank you once again, Dr. Bola Agbola, for this very interesting conversation. Indeed, an agribusiness expert and CEO of Lam Agro Consult.
Thank you
for coming to the studio, and thank you for sharing deep insights on what we must do to make agriculture a pivot for Nigeria's inclusive economic growth. Very rich conversation.
Thank you once again.
Thank you. To our viewers, if you want to get further insights on this conversation, visit the ProShare website displayed on the screen and follow our social media platforms to engage further. Till we come your way again, enrich yourself with the knowledge of socio-economic developments around you, because it's a wise thing to do. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.